set up the game of Mancala, first set up the game area. To do this, first set out the Mancala board. Each player will sit opposite from one another, with each player facing the long side of the board. If you don't have an official board, an egg carton and 2 bowls can be used in lieu of one. Next, locate the pieces and place them on the game board. The game board is made up of 12 indents known as holes or pits. Place 4 of the pieces into each of the 12 pits. The colors of the pieces does not matter. If you do not have an official Mancala board and are using an egg carton, you can use something such as dried beans or small stones as the pieces. The 2 larger spaces at the ends of the boards are known as stores. These will be left empty. After setting up the game area, players are ready to begin playing. The game of Mancala is very easy to learn and pick up, making it a good game for people of all ages. The object of the game is to try to capture more of the pieces into your store than your opponent captures. To start the game, one player will be chosen as the start player. That player will take the first turn and will choose one of their pits to play from. Each player has 6 pits on the game board, which are the 6 on their side of the board. They must always choose from their side of the game board, so they may never choose a pit from across the board to play from. The player will remove all of the pieces from their chosen pit, and they will place 1 piece into each pit in a counterclockwise direction around the board, until they run out of pieces. Only 1 piece may be placed in each pit as they move. After the start player takes their turn, the other player will take their turn. They will choose one of their pits from their side of the game board, remove all of the pieces, and place 1 in each pit in a counterclockwise direction. While moving pieces, if the player reaches their store, which is the large space on the end of the game board to their right, they will place 1 of their pieces into their store. If they still have pieces remaining to place, they will continue placing around the board into their opponent's pits until they run out of pieces. If a player moves pieces from a pit and the last piece they place ends in their store, that player immediately gets to take another turn. So in this case, the purple player placed their last piece in their store, so they will immediately take another turn. It should be noted that if you continue to end in your store, you will continue to take additional turns. So if this player ended in their store, they would take another turn. Then, if they played here, they would end in their store again and take another turn. You will only ever place pieces into your own store. So if this player was moving these pieces from this pit, they would place 1 in their store, then 1 in each of their opponent's pits. But when they reached their opponent's store, they would skip it and continue placing in their own pits in a clockwise direction until they ran out of pieces. If a player moves and they end their move in an empty space on their side of the game board, that player will capture that piece and all of the pieces in the pit directly opposite in their opponent's area. So in the previous example, the orange player moved their pieces all around the board and ended in an empty space on their side of the game board. They would now immediately take the piece that ended in the empty space on their side of the game board and the pieces directly opposite that space on their opponent's side of the board. They would place those pieces into their store. Let's look at one other example of this. The purple player moves this piece and ends their turn in an empty space on their side of the game board. They would immediately capture that piece and the pieces opposite in their opponent's area. If you ended an empty space on your side, and there are no pieces in your opponent's pit opposite yours, you will only capture the one that you placed in the empty pit. It should be noted that this rule only occurs if you ended an empty space on your side of the game board. If you ended an empty space on your opponent's side, nothing happens. The game will continue in this way, with each player's turn consisting of them choosing a pit from their side of the game board and moving the pieces in a counterclockwise direction. The end of the game is triggered when all of the pits on one player's side of the board are empty. After the end of the game is triggered, the player with pieces remaining on their side will capture the remaining pieces. After all of the pieces have been placed in players' stores, each player will complete final scoring. To do this, each player will count the pieces they collected in their store. The player who ends the game with the most pieces in their store is the winner.